it's usually not good. So when we talk about the extreme of like automating everything to an ATS and taking the human component out and our gut instinct out, that's one piece. The other piece is relying too heavily on, gut instinct and feeling. And then you have an entirely biased process that's not at all, going to help you build a culture intentionally. It's homogenized and it's just kind of repeating, hiring the same type of person, which we know diversity of thought, diversity of experience, diversity of culture and perspective and socioeconomic background, all of that drives a team forward. And at minimum, 30% higher return on investment when you have diverse teams and you have more innovation and all those things come out of it.
Your business's success depends on relationships with customers, relationships with employees, and relationships with stakeholders. What do they all have in common? They're all human. Because no matter if your business is B2B or B2C, it's really H to H, human to human. Welcome to the Human Connection Podcast. I'm your host, Carl Ponto. Each week, I bring you stories, insights, and practical advice from experts that you can apply to your growing company and daily life. This week, I'm excited to connect with Alex Bowden. Alex is the founder and CEO of People First Talent and Retention Consulting, where she's an industry leader in hiring and retention strategies and best practices. She's spent the last 10 years focused entirely on leading the way for changing the way people hire and retain top talent for the better, always through the unique lens of culture. She quickly rose to a leadership position in her corporate career, being promoted 4 times in 4 years due to her ability to increase speed of hiring by 3 times, reduce turnover beyond 18 months by 30%, and engage the entire leadership team actively in the recruitment process, always culture-led. She started People First in 2018, which has been named Best Business 2 years in a row, and is the best-selling author of 2 books on the topics of hiring and retaining top talent and entrepreneurship as a working mom. Additionally, she is a successful career coach and leads a career development program through Northern Kentucky University, helping students identify their unique strengths and talents and the right opportunities to pursue for joy and success in their work. Lastly, and Alex's passion is to help job seekers through major career changes and challenging transitions. People First has founded a global platform called the Career Catalyst. This program makes high-quality career coaching and recruiting accessible for all at an affordable cost and is based on the data around optimizing your job search and built by real-life recruiters, hiring managers, and coaches. For fun, she runs a local salsa dance school with her husband, Freddie, is a bourbon enthusiast, and welcomed her 3rd child last year. Congrats on People First, and welcome to the Human Connection Podcast.
Thank you, Carl. And hearing that out loud, I think I need to shorten that down a little bit.
I mean, it's one of the longer bios I've read out, but it seems like a lot of great stuff. No extra fluff or filler there, really important things. So I'm glad you included it all there. And yeah. I'm really excited to have you on the show to talk about this idea of the kind of what we were talking earlier about, like the dating rules for work and how to build those right sort of matches between companies and their employees. Because it seems like these days, especially, there's a huge disconnect between employees and companies, whether they're between quiet quitting and just like the hiring challenges or like job search challenges people are having. So how do you approach that?
Yeah, so that's part of the methodology I've been building over the many years, a lot of trial and error. But I started off just being really curious about what makes a good match. When I started in my corporate job, it was my first time really in a talent specific role. I kind of fell into it backwards. And so I quickly noticed that the people that we were hiring that fit the blueprint on paper were not actually succeeding or excelling in the roles we put them in. And so that, started me thinking through, okay, why is that? Who is succeeding? Why are they succeeding? And that really launched my career and my work with job seekers and with companies around how to operationalize culture. How do you take it from something that's this fluffy, abstract idea to something very tangible and real that drives bottom line results? And it all boils down to engaging the human holistically. What are they good at? What do they enjoy? Which environments do they thrive in? And when you connect the right person with the right skill set, with the right environment, everybody wins, right? The company wins, the person wins. So when it comes to dating, it's the same thing. I always reference dating when it comes to talent around interviewing specifically. When you show up to an interview, it's similar to showing up to a date where you don't know what you're going to get. And if you lead with just the tactical stuff of like, here's what I'm looking for. How many kids do you want? What's your religion? What, it's so dry and like it turns people off, right? So you have to lead with the human connection portion of who you are, what makes you tick, what do you value, like what do you love and enjoy? Like those are things that we can connect to on a human level. And then energetically speaking too, when you're in an interview and you're nervous or anxious or desperate, those things may not be able to be labeled by the receiving party, but they are palpable. We feel that energy. And so being able to lead with confidence and clarity in who you are and what you bring to the table presents a very different energy and is perceived in a very different way than, having desperation. The same way you're on a date and you're like, this person seems nice, but I'm just not feeling them. Like something's off. It's not clicking, right? It's the same. It's that human to human connection. So we tend to leave that out of the work that we do. And it's the most critical factor in the work that we do.
Yeah, absolutely. I've heard a lot from other people on the show and seeing posts on LinkedIn about how much the reliance on like ATS systems and companies trying to kind of automate their hiring process, which leads them to rely on the skills and kind of cuts out all the human aspect and the cultural fit and the personality that just can't be communicated through a resume and can't be screened with a ATS software.
No.
But the over reliance on those has made the hiring process contributed to the nightmare status of hiring for both parties, whether you're an employer or employee or seeking like an employment. But on the flip side, because they've relied on for so long, the people involved have kind of forgotten how to connect with people, how to actually have those conversations, how to interview in a way that reveals and is able to give them a good sense of who the person is as a human being.
Yes.
And so this process just seems completely broken for so many organizations because they've relied on this crutch that is not really able to support what they're hoping to lean on.
Yes, 100%. That's something that we tried to solve when we work with businesses in our B2B service, because yes, you do need a system and a process that automates certain things. Yes, you do need something that is more efficient and scalable and consistent. But to your point, we've done it through ATS systems that automate aspects that shouldn't be automated, right? The way that you build out a repeatable system that works is by identifying not only the skills that you're looking for, but what are those core cultural competencies and behaviors, and how do you make sure that you're customizing the questions you act and the way you engage with a candidate to flush that out and see if they're also a culture fit. And that, I think, because people don't understand quite how to do that in a tangible way, it's just pushed off to automation. But really, the infrastructure we build for companies is all around a repeatable system. We're building out a structure of building a blueprint for this candidate and then teaching people how to screen for it and having customized interview questions and processes around those competencies and flushing that out early and often so that you do have something that's repeatable and like I said, objective, consistent, but it cuts down on a lot of the wear and tear on the internal team of having to screen tons of resumes and conduct tons of interviews. And really, it's a guessing game at that point if you're doing it that way of picking the right candidate. So.
Yeah, I like that balance that you mentioned there of kind of helping them streamline but not automate the parts that need to be done by a human, because you have to be able to connect with people like in the interviews and that sort of stuff. And also another thing that came to mind as you were talking about when they are looking for who's the right person for a role, I think that I'm talking about kind of cultural fit, which I'd love to hear your take on this, where people think that, for them to be a good hire, they have to fit our existing culture exactly, not be someone who's going to help us move the culture where we want it to be or where it needs to be for us to grow. And so you
Yes.
get these really homogenized, like, well, they're not one of us already. It's like, well, of course not. They're not, they haven't worked there. They're not immersed in your culture yet. But
Yes.
if you don't keep adding new flavors, new styles, new viewpoints, and you expect your team to be super innovative and come up with new ideas, but you've basically hired a bunch of kind of copies of each other, you're setting yourself up for failure because you're not invigorating your culture with new ideas and new people. So is that something that your system or your experience has shown that your approach helps solve?
Yes, I'm so glad you brought that up, Carl, because that's the other side of the equation, right? Like I like to think of everything in terms of a range and a pendulum swing, and you don't want extreme of one or the other anywhere. It's usually not good. So when we talk about the extreme of like automating everything to an ATS and taking the human component out and our gut instinct out, that's one piece. The other piece is relying too heavily on, gut instinct and feeling, and then you have an entirely biased process that's not at all, going to help you build a culture intentionally. It's homogenized and it's just kind of repeating, hiring the same type of person, which we know diversity of thought, diversity of experience, diversity of culture and perspective and socioeconomic background, all of that drives a team forward. And at minimum, 30% higher return on investment when you have diverse teams and you have more innovation and all those things come out of it. We know this. We also know that people have confirmation bias and bias towards people that are like them. And so if you don't have any checks and balances in place for that component, yes, you are just really recreating the same type of person or usually the same manager, right? Like the manager that's making the decision is looking for someone like them, usually subconsciously. And that's not always good either. So we like to talk about it not just as a culture fit, but a culture add. How are you adding to the culture? And so when we do a cultural evaluation, we create not just a blueprint for the candidate, but a blueprint for the organization. We really identify where they want to go and how to build it intentionally. What do those behaviors look like? What behaviors, we have like where you are now, and then maybe we want to keep some of those elements in our future culture and maybe want to phase some of those out. We don't like those as much. We want to improve in some of those areas. So who can we bring into the organization that has those strengths and capabilities that's going to drive us forward and create that new, better version of our culture? And that's a conversation I feel like is missed a lot when we talk to companies and we lead with culture. We get the similar response. We have a great culture. Like, okay, great. You have a great culture. Perfect. Now, is your business today where it needs to be to grow 5x, 10x? No, right? Like your business has to evolve and change to get to that next level. So does your culture. And same thing with, anytime you add someone, take them away, I refer to it like a soup, right? If you're adding ingredients to a soup, it's changing the consistency and the flavor of that soup. Same thing if you make it next time and you leave certain ingredients out, right? So anytime you add a person or take a person away from an organization, it's changing that culture a bit. Whereas people grow and evolve and change, it's changing and adapting that culture a bit. So it's not a one and done. You cannot just say like, oh, we have a good culture, it's set, we're good to go. You have to intentionally build this thing and you have to build it over time, and it will evolve and change with or without you. So hopefully you want to have a hand in saying what that looks like in the future. And to do that, you have to boil it down into behaviors. What behaviors do I want to see show up in the way we interact with customers, in the way we interact with each other, in the way we interact, with our work, in the way we communicate, in the way we deliver customer service, in the way that we define ethics and integrity. People define these things very differently. And I encourage anyone listening to go out and test that. Ask them to define something vague, like what does integrity mean to you? Or what does, customer service mean to you? And if you only give them like 1 to 2 sentences to describe, they're probably going to be a little different. And that's because we all have a different experience and cultural background on what that means to us. So organizations need to first define that, and then you're intentionally screening for those things that you want to build and those people you want to bring into the organization.
Love that. And it's such what I like about the way you just described it was it wasn't just a vague, here's kind of the idea what you should do. It's like, this is just a step you should take. If you're not asking these questions, go out and ask your team. I mean, if you haven't already done that recently or ever, that's a great first step. And so I imagine with how many years you've been doing this and how many companies you've helped, you have some great case studies of people have gone through this process with you and come out the other side. And what does that transformation look like?
The transformation is significant. We have, for example, just using that in hiring differently, the way we build out the entire hiring life cycle and strategy, we have been able to save companies sometimes 70% in efficiency of how they're eliminating candidates, upwards of $100,000 per year in what they're spending on recruiters or turnover in the process from not hiring the right people. Okay, so there's significant impact, both financially, efficiency, in terms of dialing that in to exactly what prototype you're looking for. And that prototype can show up in a variety of ways. So being clear that it's not, we want to hire this type of person with this background and this culture and this, pedigree. It's not that, right? We want to hire this type of person that has these natural strengths and competencies. And they're going to show up in every facet of what they do, which you actually started this conversation. And it's funny, I had a conversation about it earlier with a client. It's going to show up in every facet of what they do, no matter what they're doing, because it's just who they are. So that is what I mean when you want to create a blueprint. It's not about someone's pedigree. It's about who they are and what their natural strengths and competencies are and matching them.
Yeah, I think, it's that mindset shift of we're looking to hire an employee to we're looking to hire a human being and seeing them as a person first who doesn't come with just a list of skill sets and an educational background and years of experience, but it's their perspective, their mindset, the sense of humor, all the elements of what makes someone fun to work with and a good connection and someone you'd want to spend as many hours working with as people spend at work with a lot of these teams, especially if you're in a startup or high stress environment. You're like long hours, a lot of intensity. You don't want to be surrounded by people that you can't stand because the work's going to suffer and you're not going to stick around. And so I think your point to having a method that helps identify people as people first and looking for that entire package is a way to make sure that when your hiring process is more attuned to that than just what's found on a resume that the ATS can screen for quickly, because otherwise you're setting yourself up for failure and going to be stepping on the same rake that so many other companies have. And it's painful to see these companies keep making these same mistakes over and over and over when it's from, at least from my perspective and probably your perspective, it's like the rake's right there to stop stepping in it. You have to step a little bit left or right, but just stop stepping on it.
Yes. And I think it's that, because people don't have time and they don't have the level of nuance and understanding that, people like me that are in it every day do. So we have this broad application of a concept, but it's not a broad application. Like, it has to be very adaptive. So per company, that blueprint's going to look different. Per role, to your point, like, I want to enjoy the people that I work with. At the same time, I've seen that maladapted to people only hiring people they feel like they like. It's like, okay, well, just because you don't want to go get a beer with them doesn't mean that they're great. They're not great at what they do and the right person for the job. So you have to think too through the lens of, well, what do I need from them? Do I need my tech engineer to be someone that I want to go grab a beer with after work? Probably not, but do I need them to be really excellent at these 4 things and someone that's going to drive the team and call out, poke holes and stuff and like challenge everybody, yeah, I probably do want that, right? So I'm going to look for that type of personality, but then they still need to operate within the same values, right? I still need to know that they're not going to step on people's necks to get where they're going. They're not going to lie to me. They're not going to, like, so there's always an adaptive framework that you need to customize. Now, if I'm hiring the front desk person who's going to be greeting our customers day in and day out, yeah, I want them to be likable, right? Like people have to walk in and feel a certain way, like they're welcome and they're warm and they're extroverted. I don't want someone that's good at the job, but is super like awkward and introverted and doesn't want to engage with people being the first person my customers come into contact with. Right? So there's so many elements that need to be taken into consideration. Where people get in trouble is just trying to broadly adapt a general concept to everything, and it doesn't work, right? We need to be very intentional.
Love it. Love it. Well, thank you so much for connecting with me today, Alex. If you like this episode of the Human Connection podcast, please like, leave a review, and share it. If you want to connect with myself or Alex, check out the links in the show notes. And remember, no matter if your business is B2B or B2C, it's really H to H, human to human. Happy connecting.